She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. Oh my gosh, Dr. Susie Edge follows us.
Well, buy me a bow and take me to Rio because I'm open for business, Richard.
I'm gonna need you to release my tit.
I'm the girl that they tie up in the barn.
It doesn't even occur to her that being a woman would be a barrier for her.
Fake it, Tom, for me. And a point for singing.
and Tom says that doesn't count.
Bullshit.
That's what he said.
He favors you. That's not fair.
So I'm late today.
Getting
in here. Yeah, that's kind of you to say because I'm almost 15 minutes late to our scheduled filming time because I fell asleep reading.
Girl, you've been busy.
And Tom feeling me up.
He's just trying to get his payment.
He, in fact, told me... So I had a bad dream last night that, he left me, which, of course, that was my dream.
Yeah.
I don't know why. He's not going to leave me, but I keep having these dreams that he does. And, I woke up from the dream, and he had reached over and was cuddling me. And that's not, we're not night cuddlers. He is 1,000,000,000 degrees.
Oh,
I don't want him touching me while we're sleeping. So I told him about this at church, and he went to respond. He was like, no, that's not church appropriate. So I asked him when we got home what he was going to say, and he's like, you should have just woken me up with a blowjob. And I was like, first of all, you cannot you would be unconscious, so that's sexual assault. He's like, I am giving you blanket permission to wake me up with a blowjob, a hand job, or a tit in my mouth. I don't care.
Tom.
You have blanket permission.
Okay, Tom.
And I was like, I know what you're like when you get woken up.
Hard pass.
I'm not going to do that.
Hard pass, guy.
But apparently, he felt that gave him blanket permission to grope me and feel me up while I was asleep until I woke up 15 minutes ago.
Did you wake up screaming, assault?
No, I didn't. But I woke up and it was like, I told you I wasn't supposed to fall asleep. I've got a film. And then he was still groping me and I was like, can you stop so I can get up?
He's like, meh.
I'm going to need you to release my tit so I can get out of bed.
Meh.
Fully clothed. I was just asleep.
Nice. Let's see. My week has
Marriage is weird.
Nah, it is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's been on turnaround. He started that Sunday? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I've pretty much been solo.
Mm-hmm.
Both girls have been sick.
Mm-hmm.
Piper tried pulling a fast one today, but I didn't let her.
What do you mean?
So, when you tell your kid something and then they try to use their friend to ask for the thing you told them no for?
Uh-huh.
She did that with her boyfriend today. I told her this weekend that she was staying home because she's been doing a lot lately and she hasn't been well and she could stay home and rest. And I get a text message from the boyfriend asking if Piper can come hang for the weekend, for the day. And
Hold up.
Piper begs.
I read this in a text message and thought that Katie sent it.
Nope, I absolutely sent that.
I was damn, Katie's had a lot going on today.
Nope, that was 1,000,000% my house.
I guess I really needed that nap.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to need a longer one later, I think.
Maybe Tom will leave me alone.
No, he won't. He'll massage you to sleep.
Massaging and groping, not the same thing.
In his mind, probably.
I don't need my boob massaged. Thank you very much.
So I blew through this week's book and another book this week. And I'm halfway through Blackbird and Butcher today.
You are Butcher and Blackbird. You're further than me. I'm only...
Right. And usually in our season, I'm dragging to, read. And I'm, just popping it off.
But I
did read my first I am too. I read my first mafia romance this week.
Oh gosh.
Not a fan,
I'm not
especially
either.
when like there's 95% is just sex and there's no storyline.
Yeah. And also, I don't understand why in those dark romances they have to be so like vulgar with the descriptions. Like, don't tell me about the sounds and the smells and ugh.
Oh, I find it funny.
No.
I'm finding
No.
Blackbird and Butcher and Blackbird funny.
Are they have you gotten to those parts where they're having spicy
Oh,
naughtiness?
not yet.
Okay, I haven't yet
Not yet.
either. I'm just to the point now where she goes
We're
to their
still
restaurant.
we're still slow burning. We're still slow burning. But let's talk about this week's book because I was impressed with how much you liked this. This
Listen,
week,
before you do that, we had a really shitty first month of this pod.
facts.
And I am feeling much better about October because I loved this first book and
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying Butcher and Blackbird.
Mm-hmm. I
Um
am squeaky today. I'm sorry.
it's all good. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Tell us what book we read.
So this week we read
Mhm.
Anatomy: A Love Story by Dana Schwartz. Schwartzman?
Schwartz.
Schwartz?
You've got
No,
the cover.
Schmartz. Schmartz?
No,
Schmartz?
it's SCHWARTZ.
I'm seeing an M on the cover. Am I reading that wrong?
Her name is Dana Schwartz.
It looks like an M on the cover. Fuck
It's
you,
just the
dyslexia and
font.
shitty fonts.
But look how pretty this cover is.
I know, it's
Ooh.
gorgeous. And the next book's just as pretty.
I know, and
The
after
next book's is just as pretty.
I know, and after I finished this one, I went and
Mhm.
Amazon had them both on sale. I got hardbacks of the two of them together for $20.
This is Piper Addie's copy. I snatched
Listen,
from
two of
her.
them for $20 when the hardback is $18.99 regularly.
Mhm.
Also, this is a
Mhm.
library copy. Support local libraries.
Would you like a synopsis?
I would love nothing more than a Molly
Which
Biggs
I'm kind of
synopsis.
nervous about the synopsis because you really liked this book. So whenever you really enjoy a book, you give really detailed synopsis. So I'm always like, I'm gonna fuck it
I
up.
always give a detailed synopsis, even when I didn't enjoy the book.
Right, but if you like it, you do it good justice.
It's
If you
fine.
don't like it, you pound it out and you make everybody know it.
I think I did a good job with the
You
description from last week, and
I'm
I
not
did
saying
not
you
like
don't
that
do good
book.
jobs. I'm not saying you don't do good jobs. I'm just saying we know the difference. And they're always excellent
I'm not good
synopsis.
at hiding my emotions.
No, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Honesty is a good quality to have in friends.
Yeah. All right. Do your synopsis.
I will do my damnedest. Edinburgh, 1817. We meet Hazel Sennett, which is spelled Sinnett. That's right. Let's get a check mark for the dyslexic girl for knowing how to say that. Um, sorry. I am
You listened
not
to the
doing.
audiobook. They pronounced it for you.
Shut up. You can't give me one thing.
Molly, can you give the motherfucking synopsis?
I'm working on it. I'm sorry. Let's try this again. Hazel Sennett has been betrothed to her cousin Bernard for as long as she can remember, but all she wants out of this life is to be a doctor and a surgeon. But to become a surgeon in these times as a lady is unheard of. As af, as af, that's not a thing. After her older brother's death, her mother fears illness and that her younger brother will meet the same fate. So when the Roman fever returns to Edinburgh, she flees, leaving Hazel alone on the family estate. This
Mm-hmm.
is when Hazel dives deeper into her studies.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Courier meets Hazel when she is trying to sneak into an anatomy show. He is
Mm-hmm.
a resurrectionist who helps the surgeons find bodies to study. The two start to work together in an effort to help Hazel become a surgeon. Hazel is on a time crunch. She must pass her test, and to do it, she is to be wed, and to do it before she is wed. But she is starting to gain feelings for Jack. What will Hazel do? This gothic romance is a perfect start to our spooky season. Let's
Mm-hmm.
dive into some questions.
Okay, so before we dive into questions, this is what I want to say.
Okay.
this book is historical fiction. It's
Mm-hmm.
historical romance.
Mm-hmm.
I have consistently said on this podcast that I do not like historical fiction,
You do not.
but I have decided that I like gothic historical fiction.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
Gothic romances, every single time that we've read a gothic romance for this podcast,
You
I've
love
liked the
it.
book.
It's moody. I think it sets a scene and it sets a tempo. And
I think I just like, I don't
some
know.
bitches gotta be murdered.
It's got to happen.
That's the tagline for the next episode. That should be the tagline of this. Some bitches
Some
have to get
bitches got to
murdered.
be murdered.
That's the tagline for Butcher and Blackbird, by the way. That should be. Some bitches gotta get murdered.
Right.
So let's start off. Dana Schwartz started this book with a Mary Shelley quote. Do you feel it sets the pace for the reader? I'm gonna read it to you for our people at home playing the poem game. To examine the cause of life, we must have recourse to death. Do you feel this set the tempo? Did it set you up for this book as the author intended it to?
I think so. And I think I told you this early on, but there are a lot of similarities to this book in The Bone Garden, which we read in the
Mm-hmm.
first season, and Mexican Gothic, which was that also in the first season? It might have been. Might have
Mexican
been
was
second
in season
season.
one.
It
It's
was
season
season
one.
one.
I want to. It was season
Yeah.
one.
And Mexican Gothic uses a Frankenstein Mary Shelley
Yeah.
quote at the beginning of it too. I think you get the vibes that we're gonna build a man at some point, right? It's
Yeah.
gonna be some sort of like
Yeah. Life has a
playing God.
consequence. Yeah.
And that certainly happens here. I was surprised that I liked this book because I don't typically like historical fiction, because I don't typically like spooky books. I'm gonna adjust my camera
No.
here.
No.
But I I felt like the tone was set from jump.
Mm. Okay. Well, I'm going to argue that.
Oh.
I think it's super easy for an author of a gothic anything, gothic horror, gothic romance, gothic YA, whatever. It is easy to just pull a Mary Shelley quote and be like, "Huh, look, I'm horror." It is
Okay,
just
but Mary Shelley is the queen and
yeah, she's the
inventor of the
reason.
genre.
Agreed. But it doesn't mean we need to use it every time we write a fucking horror novel.
I
And I
think it's
feel like
more the sci-fi elements and not the horror.
mhm,
Um but I
like
mean, this book was like Frankenstein for a new generation.
it was. And I'm not ringing the bell for this book specifically. I'm ringing the bell for the
The
overall
cliche of
use,
using it.
the cliche of it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I can see that.
yes, did she pick a quote that absolutely fits this novel? Did she pick a quote from the godmother of fucking horror? Yes.
Mhm.
However, everybody else does that.
Yeah.
Everybody else does that.
Yeah, but
But
to quote you from last week, sometimes a cliche works.
exactly. Exactly. I love when you quote me to me. That's from somewhere and I don't even know what. I'll find it
I
later.
don't know either, but that was funny.
Hazel wants someone. Nope, not someone. Hazel wants something more. Nope. Why? Why? Let's try this one more time. Hazel wants something most girls of her time don't even think about: to become a doctor.
Mhm.
We have seen this type of storyline before when it
Mhm.
comes to a YA novel. Strong girl, big dreams. Does it
Mhm.
work this time?
I think so. It's actually one of the things I wrote in my review for Goodreads, that it's very much the kind of YA book that I like, the trope of the girl who's going to rise up and
Yeah.
fight the patriarchy. And I think it
Feminist
worked
against
here.
the world.
Yeah. And I think it worked here. And I also think that I don't think Hazel was doing it because she's a feminist and I think she was doing it because she wanted to be a doctor. God forbid that a
Right.
woman would have a dream like that, you know?
Right. Like
And I feel like it's similar to like Katniss. Katniss
Mhm.
didn't want to be the Mockingjay. She didn't want to be the face of a revolution. She just wanted to fucking survive. Save her
that
sister.
look, Katniss is the epitome of an anti-hero.
Oh, yeah.
The epitome of an anti-hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that happened to her was against her will. And in
Mm-hmm.
this book, this isn't her being I'm a feminist, so I deserve to be a doctor. That's
Right.
not how this is going. It's
Right.
not her views pushing her to do this. This is her drive for education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hazel wants nothing more than to study these things, to be in this scientific world, to be intelligent as these men, to study like these men, to learn like these men, to
Right.
cure like these men.
Right.
And that's all she wants in world.
And
And
more importantly, she's not doing it like these men. She's doing
mm-mm.
it because it's something that's interesting to her.
She's not doing it for fame or fortune
Or to
she's
be the
doing it
first woman. She just wants to do it. It
she's
actually
doing it
doesn't
purely
even occur to her that that
for
would
the
be a barrier
science. It's for the
for the
science.
science. It doesn't even
It's for the
occur to her
science.
that being a woman would be a barrier for her.
No, because why? Why? But it's I'm gonna I'm gonna pull a Deb Harkness quote again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the second book, Diana is given a set of keys to Philippe's house,
Mm-hmm.
and she's asking what all the keys are for. And she goes, "Which one?" And she's holding this ring of keys, and she goes, "Which one's to the library?" And Philippe goes, "We don't lock up books in this house. We don't withhold education."
Mm, that's lovely.
Right? It's that's it. We don't withhold education. If you want to learn, learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's all this is she wants to learn.
Yeah.
I want to talk okay, so next, I want to talk about the pressures of the times on Hazel.
Mm-hmm.
She is her parents' only daughter,
Yep.
and when we start the novel, she's already betrothed to her cousin. She's been betrothed to her cousin and
Yep.
promised to her cousin since they were children. Like
Yep.
she is known since day one. Bernard and her are meant to are have to be together.
Mm-hmm.
While this is common for this time frame, it does not seem to suit Hazel. Would
Mm-hmm.
you personally have survived in these times?
So when I read this question, immediately my gut was like, no, I wouldn't have because I'm a feminist and I would have
Yeah.
just done what I wanted. But then I actually sat with this question for a little bit and I feel like I can't judge because
Mm-mm.
here's the thing. I love love. I love love stories. And I feel like I may have been one of those girls who wanted to get married. Like that was a big life goal of mine
Yeah.
was to get married, to find my partner and to start a family. It wasn't my only life goal, but if
No.
that was your only prospect, if that is what you had that you could do with your life,
Right. Right.
and I actually
You
had this
feel you could
conversation.
have been realistic back then?
I feel like I probably would have done that. I probably would have filled
Yeah.
that role in society. I was having this conversation with someone recently about how women were have historically been the cattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I will
We
trade
have.
you whatever and I'll have this woman as my
Mm-hmm.
wife. And how it's still ingrained in us to fight
Yeah.
for that. And so when we have the man
Mm-hmm.
and we have the kids, then we have to find other things to be petty about. So
Ain't
these
that the truth?
fucking PTA moms who
Seriously.
fight
Who
over dumb shit.
those PTA
And
moms
and
are
side
going back.
note, I'm not talking about the PTA moms that like the ones that are my friends. Like you guys know who you are. I know a few of you listen. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the stereotype of the fucking PTA mom because that is now the thing to fight over. And we have
Because
to constantly be catty over things.
because it's reprising their role as queen of popularity, like in high school.
Yeah.
Here's
And
the
you think
thing.
about like, I'm going to use Gilmore Girls again. Emily
Mhm.
Gilmore. Her job
Yeah.
was to be Richard's spouse. And there are a few times in Gilmore Girls where she goes off the rails and just buys shit. And
The plane episode.
yes, in the episode where she goes to the mall and Rory and Lorelai are there and she just buys a whole
Do you have
store
a
of stuff
globe?
that she doesn't need.
Do you have a globe? I'm gonna buy you a globe. Package that globe up for her.
And he's like, that's the display. It's not even for sale.
She's
It's for
like, I don't.
sale.
And she just stops. And she's like, I will get it packaged up. I'm so sorry, Miss Gilmore.
And she buys all those random apples. And then when Richard comes home, she's like, oh, he's like, I've always liked those. And she's like, he doesn't see me.
He doesn't
And so
notice.
then she goes off the rails and does stuff like, well, buy me a boa and take me to Reno because I'm open for business.
Only prostitutes have 2 glasses of wine at lunch.
At lunch.
Well, buy me a boa and take me to Rio because I'm open for business, Richard.
Exactly. And see, that is still happening. So even
Yeah.
though you and I are self-professed feminists,
I try, damn it.
I still feel like there are things that I get catty over because it's deeply ingrained into my DNA.
Yeah. See, I want to think that I would like personally be strong in these times and go,
Right.
I'm not marrying my cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling that I'm the girl that they tie up in the barn because they think I'm loopy, right? You know?
Well,
because I'm a weird kid. I've always been a weird kid. Since day one, the first time I start talking to the animals outside, my parents are going to be like, that kid's never getting married. We're going to have to keep her in the fucking barn so nobody sees her.
Listen, Penelope got Colin.
Yeah.
You got Matthew.
That is true. But that's the thing, right? I wasn't the weird kid in the woods in the Regency time talking to the trees and being the weirdo in those times.
But
I was being a weirdo in modern day where it's acceptable to be my weird self.
But along those lines, when you think of things like Pride and Prejudice and Little Women, you have these precocious girls who do not fit that mold, who are completely outside of that mold, and yet they still get married.
Mm-hmm.
And they still find the true love.
But
Anne of Green Gables, which is more modern than Regency era, same thing there. And we know eventually in Bridgerton we're gonna see what the fuck's her name? Eloise. We know we're gonna see Eloise get married.
Which I've learned that they're really deriving from her storyline in the books to change it so they stay in London. And I'm not vibing with that, man.
I feel like
I'm not vibing with that.
Side note, while we're on Bridgerton, I feel like it would have been better to. I've never read the books. I've just read synopsis of the books, but I feel like it would have been better to have Eloise be the character that's queer, or even Hyacinth, where
really wanted
Francesca doesn't seem like the right choice to me.
I have big feelings. But this is not a Bridgerton episode, and I will go on a tirade.
No, because the one time that we read a Bridgerton book, you didn't bother show up for the episode, and Katie and
I was sick. I didn't have a voice.
Yeah, sure.
I was faking it. That's it. She figured it out. I'm a faker. Big old faker. Faker.
I know you didn't have a voice. I was just being catty.
Facetious.
As we just talked about.
Women have nothing to do with our lives. But no, I mean, marrying a cousin? I even think back then I would have beef.
It seems like you have to think about Downton Abbey.
But it's his first cousin.
Mary was supposed to marry her first cousin too. It was the way to keep the lineage in the family. So
yeah, and look how great King Charles looks. And his family's all related.
Listen, King Charles does not look that bad, and I will say his sons are pretty
Yeah, but
attractive.
yeah.
And yes, his family was inbred and married in, and his grandparents were, or I guess Charles' parents, William's grandparents, they were
Yeah.
what, third cousins, I think.
Second or thirds?
Yeah.
I don't like it. No me
It was
gusta.
not uncommon at this time to marry
I
your cousin.
but now we know what happens when the bloodlines mix.
Dude, have you ever seen that show, My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding?
Oh my god, yes.
Several of those girls marry their first cousins.
Oh my god, yes. It is so gross.
That's in our country, y'all. Well, those of us that are listening here in the
Okay,
US.
question 4.
Mm.
When we meet Jack when Hazel is trying to sneak her way into an anatomy lesson.
Mm-hmm.
We learn his job as a resurrectionist man, and we've learned about this before in previous episodes because of previous books. We are well versed in the job of a resurrection man. Thank you very much. The person who digs up graves and brings bodies to be studied for medical students and doctors. Hazel isn't even a bit hesitant when she asks him to work for her. What do you think about this job, the grabber of bodies? What do you think of them working together and all this?
So, what was interesting to me about what was happening in this story, which takes place in Scotland, was that the police turned a blind eye to taking the body as long as you weren't robbing the grave. So,
which is factual. Like, that is a real thing that was happening back then.
So as long as you left the clothes and any stuff behind, you technically didn't rob the grave. You took the body.
Yep.
And while I do not think it's okay that they violated someone's corpse, I am very thankful that scientists did this, because we have medicine now that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Agreed.
Now, to be fair, in this day and age, you can donate your body to science. I have learned that if you donate your body to science, that does not necessarily mean that your body will be treated kindly by surgeons of the future who will, use your body to dissect it. Sometimes your body will be used to check decomposition of the elements.
And
not
left outside.
Yeah.
There's a whole farm up in Cortland, attached to the Cortland School of Medicine, up in the woods in upstate New York, that is just a body farm where they leave bodies that are creeks, waters.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't love that they violated, corporate corpses. Now I want to say, and I sent Molly the link, so she'll put it below here. There is an amazing woman who makes TikToks and Instagrams. Her name is Dr. Susie Edge. She lives in Scotland.
We love Dr. Susie Edge.
I'm obsessed with her. And when she started following us back on TikTok, I got a little teary-eyed because I was like, oh my gosh, Dr. Susie Edge brilliant. Follows us.
She's so smart.
She's so smart. So the link that I'm going to have Molly put below will be of her Instagram. You can follow her there or on TikTok. She posts the same videos, but it's just easier to share a link to Instagram than it is to TikTok.
Thanks, TikTok, for making that so hard.
So Dr. Susie Edge, she is a physician. She also writes books, and she recently did a whole video about resurrection men and what their profession was. And it's all factual information. She is a historian in addition to being a doctor, a physician. And she's so brilliant. And so please watch the video if you want to know more about this. What she's really known for is getting out her pen and mapping the lineage of royal families. And holy shit, it's impressive. From memory, guys. From memory. But I was just so holy crap, this is the perfect time. So I messaged her on TikTok. I DM'd her and I was like, hey, huge fan. Can we use this content credit you, share it, and promote you. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So shout out to Dr. Susie Edge, who I'm obsessed with. I am obsessed with her. Tom hears me say it all the time. And watch the content below because it is really cool, the history of the resurrection.
Is she your Ilona?
No.
Different?
No, but I totally get it with Ilona.
God, I love that woman.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. And she's on Dancing with the Stars.
No, but along that vein, Dr. Susie Edge, which by the way, you have to triple name her like that. Dr. Susie Edge has released TikTok videos, Instagram videos, hashtag not sponsored, about how she's straight and is a married woman, a woman married to a man and has kids because people think she's queer, and she doesn't have any issue with that. She'll tell you in the video, like, I don't care. I'm very comfortable in my sexuality. You can think whatever you want. And people will constantly comment, like, not Dr. Susie Edge having to come out as straight again.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's so disappointing. I'm hetero. Seriously. Roman fever is a big conversation in this book. It is how Hazel's older brother dies, and she is certain she will cure it. After I researched, which I'll put all the research I find.
Thank you for doing that research, by the way, because I was going to, and then I read your notes, and I was like, well, no, I don't have to.
Where was I? After the research, I learned that the Roman fever was nicknamed for, it's a nickname for malaria. Okay. Do you think this part of the book is feasible?
So, what do you mean? The curing of it or the spreading of it?
It's the rehashing of it, but a girl trying to cure strangers, a girl using her home as a hospital, a girl being like, I'm gonna study this and figure this out. Is this feasible to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are plenty of women scientists historically that have gone down a rabbit hole of, I will do this. You want to think about the first big, well-known woman scientist, Madame Curie.
Curie, that's who I was going to say.
And her husband was a scientist too, but we know
he was her assistant.
We know her. And then fast forward to, in more recent times, just a few years ago, a woman scientist actually was able to take a picture of a black hole. That was her life's goal, was to study black holes. It had never been done before, and she figured out how to do it. So yes, absolutely. I think it's 100% plausible. Do I think it's plausible for Hazel, though? I don't know. She was pretty set in her ways that she was going to be a successful surgeon. I don't think that her motivations for helping these people were selfless. No. She was doing it to learn.
Yeah.
If I treat them, 100%. I'm going to learn. They won't let me go to med school. Well, I'm going to learn this way.
It's the scene with the pregnancy, the woman giving birth. This is a perfect example of that, right? It's, I'm going to help you, but I also don't know what's going on. So I have to learn at the same time you're doing this. So she's literally, this woman's literally pushing, and Hazel's pulling a book out to make sure she knows what she's doing.
Right.
Like, and tell me that ain't some TISM shit, though. Like, hold on, I got a book for this. Hold on, I got a book.
I think that what ended up being her benefit was the desperation that the people felt. And this is something we saw in the book, The Bone Garden, as well. Women who would go to hospitals for pregnancy, they were getting, what was it, like pregnancy fever or
and they were called
post-birth fever.
But they had a name for it.
I can't remember what it was, but
if I find it, I'll put it in the
doctors were the ones that were spreading it because they weren't washing their hands. They were not wearing gloves, and they were sticking their hands up into women's vaginal canals.
They put their hands in the bloody, like, to check the cervix, right, to see how far long they were, and they'd pull it out and they'd crap on it, right, and then they'd go to the next spec and shove that same hand in and check, and they were spreading germs and
Yeah.
cooties.
So if you were the
Bed
last
fever.
one in the line, you were gonna
Birth
what was
bed
it?
fever? Was that, what was it called? Birth bed
Something
fever
like
or
that.
something? Yeah.
But so if you were the last woman in the line, you were definitely gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the
Um,
first, the first woman could have been yeah.
so it helped that there was a desperation of the people. It helped that she had a need. It was not of the kindness of her heart. She was not helping
No.
people because she wanted to. I feel like the counter of that was that that's what Jack wanted. Jack wanted to help
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. And I think that's why they were a good balance. But I
Mhm.
don't think Jack realized what he was getting into
Mhm.
until they were like putting people in the house and beds. And he's like, is this a good idea?
Mhm. Yeah.
Isn't somebody gonna say something? Which that rolls me into
Wait,
my next question.
before you go to your next question, I just have to say the brilliance of the illusion that Roman fever was called that, not because it came from Rome, but because it looked like someone multiple stab wounds in the back, like
Because of
Caesar.
Caesar.
Oh my
Historical
gosh.
burn.
I was like, that's fucking hilarious.
Historical burn. Since we're talking about the house being a hospital and anything, this next question kind of rolls into that.
Mhm.
Since the house becomes this hospital, makeshift hospital, right?
Mhm.
And the little staff that's there is helping. Everybody kind of knows what's going on, but
Mhm.
nobody's really saying anything. And this all happens while her mom's out of town. Again, another feasibility question. Do you think she could have gotten away with this IRL without somebody writing her mom and being like, "Hey, your kid's making a hospital at the house. Maybe send your brother over."
I feel like no. I feel like
I do
no.
too.
It just happened that there were 3 staff who
We're loyal to Hazel.
yeah. But no, I don't think that's feasible.
I really thought in a household like this, there would be at least one person that is loyal to the family
Mhm.
more in the name more than they are to a
Well, there
person.
is the cook's assistant who says, "I don't think Miss Sennett, Lady Sennett would like this." And she's like, "Well, you know what? My mom's not here, so I'm Lady Sennett now. What now, bitch?"
She pulled rank on her. She's like,
Mhm.
flip me for it.
Mhm.
Tom will get that joke and laugh really hard. Or laugh a little bit, maybe.
Probably just a little bit. He doesn't
Uh,
really laugh hard. Although he did the other day. This was fucking hilarious. And I was too stony pants to
uh-huh.
tell you what actually happened.
Oh, Jesus. Those are
But
the best things.
I had taken a gummy, and
Hmm.
Tom and James and I were sitting at the table talking, and they were supposed to be studying math because he had a math quiz the next day or
Mm-hmm.
math test the next day. And instead, they were talking about space, which he'd already taken the space test. And I just kept saying, he's already done space. He got an A on that. We need to work on math. But there was a whole discussion of what is the center of the universe,
Me.
the sun being the center of the universe. And Tom was trying to get James to tell him how many times it took the moon, how often the moon orbited the earth.
Uh-huh.
And then he was like, "How many times, April?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know how many times the moon orbits the earth. All I know is that it takes 365 days for the earth to orbit the moon." I meant sun. I meant sun. I knew what I meant, but I was too stoned. And James laughed until he cried. And Tom big laughed as well. James was falling out of his chair. And I was just like, motherfucking fuck. I can't tell my son I'm stoned, so mommy knows the right answer, but can't explain it right now.
Mom was just making a good joke. I love living with the nerd kid, though. The nerd kid's my favorite, but it's
Mm.
also super annoying. I have 2 of them in my house, and they're just
I mean, they both knew what I fucking meant, and
they're just fucking with you.
yeah.
Okay, where was I?
I have no idea.
Oh, I do know. During this novel, someone is taking the poor and taking body parts from them. The story line comes to a head as Hazel is on her way to her test when she sees someone being carted towards the operating theater. The same conversation they had with the, what's his face, Jack's friend, about losing his arm, blah blah blah. Anyways, so this is where Hazel discovers that it is Dr. Beecham the whole time. Were you surprised?
Not that Dr. Beecham, not fully that Dr. Beecham was the bad guy. I know they were trying to lean us more to like the one-eyed guy. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
But I kind of figured that he wasn't totally the best guy.
Yeah.
There was a whole thing about him not wanting to get his hands dirty and him wearing the black gloves.
Mhm.
And that right there, the symbolism of that, if you want to be all English teachery, the symbolism of the black gloves, like he can't be a good guy. He can't. It's like who wears the white hat versus who wears the black hat.
Right. Well, and the symbolism of her dress, and there's a whole conversation of symbolism in this fucking book. There is so much symbolism in this novel that we could have a whole conversation straight on that. I don't want to though.
But I feel like the symbolism in here. So one of the things I did not like about being an English teacher was beating the dead horse of symbolism. Like, everything has to represent everything.
You kids need to understand this shit.
But there's a really great John Green video where he's talking about how he doesn't intentionally write symbolism into his books. If you interpret it that way, that's completely different. I feel like that's what was happening here. I don't think that she was like, I'm going to have to put him in a black top hat and black gloves so people will know that he's the bad guy. I think she is probably just really well read and a good writer herself. And she knew that that's the way to go.
Look, the symbolism, you can see the symbolism in the red dress. You can see the symbolism with the dead older brother, the gray hat, the dove gray hat, you know, that her cousin wears. It just,
I mean, even the symbolism of what makes a gentleman versus what these men were actually doing.
Yeah. It's just, and I'm sure there's like whole English classes that use this book, and it's worth using if you're like a high school teacher looking for something fun to use. This is worth using. But I lost my point. Anyways, I'm gonna move forward. Jack takes a fall and gets arrested for all that goes down in that season in Edinburgh. Wasn't really much of a surprise to the reader. However, were you surprised by Bernard being the reason he went to jail?
Not at all. Not at all. We see these glimpses of Bernard being very jealous and possessive of Hazel very early in the book.
Yeah.
He has been told his whole life that she belongs to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And think about Moulin Rouge. I don't like it when people touch my things.
Yeah. And I got a little bell ring here. She could have leaned into that harder. Bernard, when they're alone, could have probably been more physical and like,
there's only there's only one time that he's
angry, right?
Physical with her.
Right. And you can see this in him, and those sparks are definitely in this character. I would have loved to see her lean more into that and add that element into here, because that's more the behavior of the men of those times.
But I think keeping it the way that she has it keeps it in the YA.
That's true.
If you make him more aggressive with her than the one scene, or
this is bloodier or more violent,
then we move out of YA.
That's true. I mean, the most romance we get is kissing, right? So that makes sense.
I found it interesting that even though she was in love with Jack, she still was going to marry Bernard or Bernard, as they say in the audiobook, because that was what she was told to do. So even though she's bucked the system on all these things, she's still going to marry him.
Because she knows she still has to find a way to survive.
Yep.
She's not dumb. Where was I? Dr. Beecham being still alive! He's alive! Right?
Which is the gif I sent you after I got to that part.
Yeah, exactly. After all these years, do you find that this twist was interesting? Did you see it coming? Does it change the novel for you at all? So what happens, spoilers, duh, come to find out Beecham has this magical serum. that helps him stay alive forever, and he's made up of all these body parts, like the monster in Frankenstein. So
Yes, I 100% was shocked that he was still alive, and feel like I should have seen it coming because that's exactly what happens in Mexican Gothic.
right.
But holy shit, that was a good twist.
It was. My issue with it, and I do have a smidge of an issue with it. My smidge of an issue with it is there is no breadcrumbs in this book. You know what I mean? No hints of it.
I disagree.
I think they're too subtle for the reader then. I think they're too subtle.
I disagree because the fact that he never takes his gloves off, he was trying to hide what was going on with him.
Okay.
The fact that there are certain aspects of the class that he won't do, I think he physically couldn't with the fact that all of his limbs had been replaced.
Okay.
The fact that people like respect him, but they don't want to go near him.
Right.
Like you think about when they're in the club, when she approaches him in the club, there's all these people that are being like, why is she sitting with him? Yeah. And we think as the reader, it's because she's a woman. But when we get there, we can look back and go, oh, that was actually foreshadowing for the fact that people are very uncomfortable.
Creeped out by him. Yeah. I mean, but again, those are small slivers throughout this book.
Yes, but that's the way foreshadowing is done right.
Right.
That's when it's done right.
This is a YA novel.
I would 100% read Dana Schwartz again.
I too, but that's what I'm saying though. I don't expect my teenager to get those subtleties in here.
But see, that's what makes them better readers. It's like when you watch a movie and it has a big twist and you're like, oh my gosh, I see how we got there. That's what this did. That's what this did. And it's what makes you a better reader.
It does. It does. I'm not saying it doesn't. Jack's found guilty in the end. Zero surprise there. Do you think he will take the magical liquid?
I think he did take the magical liquid.
I think so too.
And we absolutely have to have Hazel tell us that she didn't go to the execution, that she did not watch him get hanged, because something happened where we get a letter. What is it, like 6 months later or something, where someone from the Americas sends her a letter?
Yeah. And the horse is magically missing. And yeah, it was, I loved it at the end. I was like, okay, fine, I'll read the next book, you shithead.
I was so happy that the sequel was already out. Like, I've read books before where I'm like, fuck, now I've got to wait a whole year. Like, Fourth Wing, motherfucking give us 2 books in 1 year, and now we got to wait till January for the other one? Whatever.
Bitches.
But that's why I bought it. And this is one of the things I told Tom. I was like, I cannot believe that I can't start this book right now. But I can't. I know.
Isn't that frustrating?
Because we are so deep in pod. And there's another series that Katie and I started over the summer that there are 2 more books in that series and I want to read them. And I can't.
Just don't have the time.
They're just sitting on my shelf. I don't have time.
Okay.
However, with that said, I did not like the audiobook for Butcher and Blackbird, so I'm reading the physical book. So I may actually start
an audiobook,
but probably still a pod one, but then that'll help me get ahead.
Final thoughts. April Goodreads. That's where we are.
I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I know you gave it a 4. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It isn't often that a book makes me go, holy shit, I did not see that coming.
She loved this book.
I really did.
And
it doesn't
she does not love historical fiction.
It does not get a full 5 for me because I feel like there are some things that aren't flushed out enough. And one of them is like, how the hell did she get a whole hospital in her house? Like, that feels very unlikely.
Just the dungeon magically being converted and everybody just being on board. And there's a couple things where I was like, okay, we get it filled out here. That's why my Goodreads is a 3.5. I rounded up to 4.
Wow, that low? That's what you gave the book from last week. This book destroys last week's book.
Agreed. But they're equal on different levels in my brain. And I can't explain it.
I can't process that.
You don't have to. It's okay.
I can't pass that.
Esote. Did you have any more final thoughts about this
book? We did not talk about the fact that Jack is one of the people who actually gets abducted, and Dr. Beecham is going to cut out his heart and cuts him right down the middle. And Hazel is able to nurse him back to health.
With the help of Bernard, unfortunately. And that's how they get caught.
That's how they get caught. But I am very interested. So the first book, which is Anatomy, which is the one we just talked about, you can see it's a heart here. And not a heart shape like we would make with like Taylor Swift hands. Like not that. Like it's an actual heart. And then you can see Hazel right here.
It's an anatomical heart.
Right. So the next one is Immortal, and it's a brain.
Nice.
I can't wait.
It's alive! It's alive!
I know. I have 2 books I need to finish for our reading challenge that we do every year, and I do not know how I'm going to fit those 2 books in.
I'm so behind on reading challenge.
Well, I've finished every single year that we've been doing it, and I really don't want to not finish because of 2 motherfucking books. But
I am
Tom picked Dungeon Crawler Carl for my spouse pick book. Which, why would I ever want to read that? And the other book I have left to do is Argyle, because that was a book that was a movie this year.
I have 17 of our 30. That's pretty far for me. Normally
that's pretty far, but I only have 2, and I don't think I'm going to finish.
I normally only get it to number 5, though, guy.
I know.
I get to number 5, and I'm like, I'm done tracking. Bye.
But do you know how bad it's going to suck that I'm going to miss it by 2 books, even though we're in September and I've read like 70 books at this point? But I'm going to miss our 30-book challenge by 2.
I know.
And I maybe can do it, but we have some big things coming up that like are more important than this challenge. And some really big guests coming up that like we can't even talk about all the guests yet. Like that's how huge this season is.
You want to talk about the rest of this month?
Sure.
Let's talk about spooky season, eh?
Well, we already talked about the rest of this month. We can just talk about next week, unless you want to go through the whole month again if you want.
I don't mind. So next week is Butcher and Blackbird. I'm pretty far along. I'm actually researching. I'm actually hosting that next week. I'm double hosting because April will be hosting Emma Baring. So
with Bad Reputation, yeah. And I haven't even started it yet. So
Me either.
I gagged on page 2 for Butcher and Blackbird, and somehow I like it. I don't know.
I find it super adorable. I cannot wait to talk about it next week.
They have some good witty banter. I mean, it's murderous, but it's still good.
Yeah. So
it reminds me of this really awful movie from the 90s called The Perfect Fit, which is about this couple who murder people to find the perfect fitting pair of jeans, which is like the dumbest concept ever. I'm not kidding. That's what it is.
I have never heard of this.
It's awful. You don't want to see it.
I can't wait to look it up when we're done. Okay, besties, we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah.
Bye, gang.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of April and Molly and not those of anyone else. Today's book was Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins. Editing by Thomas Watkins. Music is Sleep Sweetly by Brigida. Don't forget to follow the Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you'd like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com or visit our website, bookbestiespodcast.com. Until next time, besties, get lost in your favorite book.